Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Success Stories in Private Practice. Today I'm joined by Kadeisha Bonsu, a licensed clinical social worker, currently in the US, will not always be in the US because she's moving soon. She's been in private practice in this past year, and she wants to share her story about sticking with it, when to know if it's your time to take a leap and do practice, and when to know if you should throw in the towel or stick with it. So we're going to explore what success means to her. And we hope that this story will also help you reflect on your own success and what it looks like for you. Let's get started. Hey, Kadeisha, welcome.
Hey.
Hey. Well, you might be a little jet lagged. Do you want to share with everyone why?
I just came back from Ghana, where I was working on getting licensed over there and planning for my family's eventual transition there and being able to operate my practice from abroad.
Right. Couldn't do that if you were employed here, right?
Nope.
Yeah. So let's talk about why you went into practice.
Yeah, so I think like many people, my first kind of reason was flexibility, and it was my family and wanting to be able to show up in a different way. I think I also started realizing that the way I operate and who I am, like I'm a very creative person. I like being able to do things my own way. I think I needed to do private practice. I needed the space to expand and take up space in a way that didn't feel like I was operating under someone else's parameters.
So how did you first start?
I started off in group practice as an independent contractor, and I did that for a year. And along the way, I worked on setting up the structure to launch my own practice. And then eventually, when I left the independent contracting arrangement, I officially launched my practice, which was in August of 2022.
Yeah. When we talk about, okay, let's just talk about the independent contractor thing. One of the things that we teach in business school is that if you are an independent contractor, you already have your own business, because technically the business is hiring another business, whether that be a sole prop, a LLC, or an S corp, to take overflow or to support in their business in some way. Now, every state has different laws about this. My stance is like at a federal level, it's pretty hard to have therapists be contractors and pass the federal test, but a lot of people do it. So when you started as an independent contractor, did you realize you had your own business already?
I did not, and I wish that I did, but I will say that it became clear to me probably about halfway through. And once it did, I think I started moving differently and operating differently. And I also probably started being treated a little bit differently too. Once I realized, like, wait a minute, you can't call all the shots. I am my own thing.
Yes. Yeah. I think if you're a group practice owner listening, I think this is really important to remember of how you treat an independent contractor is different than an employee. That, again, that's why that federal test is there. You can't regulate the schedule. You can't tell them how to do their work. You can't, you can't have the oversight you can with an employee. Yeah.
I would also add that it would have, from my perspective, it could have been helpful to know that I was already a business, even just in terms of the confidence and the boost of like, wait a minute, like I am doing this, which then probably would have led me to realize sooner, like you can also do it on your own because you are already doing it. But then one really practical piece that I think of is something I would have done differently. I would have had a business account, right? Which probably is like the most obvious basic step. But I was acting like an employee and treating the way I was being paid as an employee. So even though I was doing the things like setting aside taxes, et cetera, I never had a business account. And once I had transitioned into opening my practice, and it was in the same tax year, if you will, as I was doing bookkeeping and stuff, I was like, man, I wish I had a business account from day one.
Yeah. So I guess, why not be an employee? Why this route of doing it yourself? You said like you wanted to do things your own way. What does that really mean for you though?
Yeah, I think I'm naturally a leader, and there are some places that embrace that and want that, and that's fine, all well and good. I actually feel like I mean, I'm a person of faith, and so I'll speak from that perspective that I feel like God led me to be pushed out into what I would call the deep. I would say that I never imagined myself being a private practice owner. It's just not something that I aspired to. I think I always envisioned being an employee, and I think part of that is because of my own life experiences. I didn't know that I could do something like on my own, and I've never seen it done before. And so why did I eventually choose it is partly because it chose me, but also I think another piece of it was just this aspect of realizing that it's not as difficult as I thought it would be, and that there were supports and ways that I could go about doing it. Yeah. Oh, but I want to come back to the real point I wanted to make there was coming back to the leadership piece. So even though, yes, I'm a natural leader and I like creating, I've been an employee even outside of like the private practice sector, right? Like I was in the university college counseling sector, right? And one of the things that really started to get to me was being red taped, if you will, around certain things I wanted to create. Like people would celebrate it and love it, but then if there were certain people who were higher up that didn't approve, then it wasn't going to happen. And then beyond that, I had to ask myself, like, wait a minute, I'm creating for somebody else. Why would I do that? Like that is something that really got under my skin. Now, for some people, that may not bother them. They find a sense of purpose in something like that. And I did too, but I think as a Black woman and as someone trying to leave a legacy for my family, I had to start getting smart about who I was going to sell, like who I was going to give these things to for basically for free, right? I started thinking about my intellectual property, my creative property, and I had to ask myself the question of literally, like, why would I like keep giving these things away just for a fixed salary when I could monetize them myself and have that creativity rewarded and still be able to give freely in the ways that I want to. I'm not saying that everything is about capital, but I didn't start a business to be poor either.
Right. And also, if you're changing the legacy, right? Let's talk a little bit about that, right? We've talked about when it came to setting your fee, and you work with women of color, particularly Black women, and perinatal or prenatal and perinatal. Well,
both are true. Yeah, perinatal is all encompassing.
Yes, not just the prenatal. So in terms of let's talk about what it took to set your fee and what are some of the things you went through that are unique to your experience.
Yeah. Some of the things I went through were a lot of assumptions, right? I took my own life experience, and this is not something that I would ever do. I would imagine I would never do this in a room with a client, right? I would not want to project my experience onto my client, right? I think we're very clear about that as therapists. We're trained not to do that. Yes, transference and countertransference are real, but somehow when it came to fee setting, I did a lot of projecting my own experience on the basis of my identities on my clients. So I started thinking things like, how could my community afford this? Or my community is never going to want to see me. I'm going to have to take insurance in order to be accessible, et cetera, et cetera. But having the Zinni community helped me test that a lot and to challenge those assumptions because there was and I remember one clear moment in the Zinni community in the group. It was a breakout group of therapists of color in Zinni, and I posted in that section and shared what I was feeling and thinking, like the head trash that was coming up around fee setting. And I had another Black identified female challenge me and say, this is an assumption and it's actually a really harmful one. And so when I began to think about the ways that what I was assuming could be harmful, and even how I would feel if someone was projecting onto me that I can't afford XYZ. I'm doing this because you are, quote, maybe a charity case or like whatever, right? Like I would feel a way about that. And so I'm not saying all of those things to say that accessibility is not a real challenge, but I didn't want to work out my issue in my fee. And so one of the things I said often and throughout Zenny Me, and that I'll say again is I got to the point where I realized that my fee is not a feelings decision, it's a business decision. But it took a lot of work to move past the feelings. And so that was some of the emotional work of it. But then the logical, like practical work of it was doing the lessons in Zenny Me and like having you all coach us and then thinking, looking at the numbers, period, right? When you look at something objectively, right, the math was mathing, period. This was a case where it was mathing. And I said, okay, I didn't like the fee that it's the fee calculator spit out at first. I did not like it and I did not want to do it. But y'all helped me move past the feeling part of that and said, okay, you don't have to do that, but what are some other ways you are going to other services you're going to offer that then allows you to adjust the fee? We're not going to adjust the fee based on your feeling, but we can adjust the fee based on what else you're willing to do. And so,
because you can't tell your mortgage company, I don't feel like it.
Right.
You can't tell your loans, I don't feel like it. You can't tell the electric bill, I don't feel that that's fair. I know, right? So do I. But I think you bring up some beautiful things that only like you can understand and that I cannot, in terms of that, how those things can be harmful to your community and how your own healing comes into play, like undoing some of that internalized oppressive stuff also plays into the fee. It's not there's math and then there's all the other gunk that's attached that you've got to work through. And there are people, I think, surrounding yourself with other people that are invested in that care about that, to have a colleague say to you, hey, let's talk about what this really looks like and what you're doing is really important. And that building your practice in isolation, you would miss out on some of those things, right? Definitely. And you would replicate the harm done to you in your practice.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at how much permission you think it's just giving yourself permission, but it's really giving other people permission too. And some people don't want the permission. Some people like push it away and are like gonna project their stuff on you and get mad at you for charging what you charge. But there are other people, like other colleagues that I've shared with, that I can see that knowing my fee and being able to state it freely and talk to them about why it is the way it is, it freed them to think about, oh, actually, how can I better serve my business and how can I better serve my clients?
Yeah, there was you were on a success panel with us, it was last week. And if you're listening to this, it wasn't last week, of course, but we had a success panel. And I remember a lot of people were asking about what your fee was. And a lot of people were like, whoa, you know, you work with Black women who are having babies and like all these things and whoa. And you handled it with such grace, but also clarity. Do you remember how you handled that and what you said?
I remember bits of it, and I appreciate that feedback because I didn't know I handled it with grace, but I appreciate that. So one of the things I said, somebody asked something like, how do you justify that fee to clients? Yeah. And I remember saying, I don't justify my fee to my clients because it's a business decision. And I think part of what I meant by that is I'm not forcing them to choose me as their therapist. Yes. In fact, when I do consultations, I will say that word grace comes up for me in this moment because I think I'm incredibly gracious in saying to clients, I may not be the right fit for you. And a financial fit is a part of fit as well. Yes. And so I try to give what I also responded with was giving quality referrals, not just, well, boom, 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 I did a quick search and here are whatever people. I try to make connections with people based on what the client shared with me and say, here are some referrals that I think could be a good fit because you mentioned this, and this. So I'm still giving them something, but I'm not going to justify what my business needs to a client. I don't justify it to my own feelings. I justify it based on what the business needs.
I love that. And well, when I say like you handle it with grace, some people, like I've seen a shift in you where some people can get defensive. I'm like, well, you know, but there was no need to be defensive. It was just sort of like, it was kind, but frank, you know, of like, here, you know, instead of getting caught up in the you could have taken a moment, Kadeisha, and I've seen it happen where people then start doubting themselves and questioning, and then they get caught up in the other person's mire of, stuff happening. But instead to just like kind of gently float above it and be honest about it, like it's growth, in you. Yeah.
You are so right, because there was a time that I would have defended it and I would have felt it. And I actually remember feeling calm and peaceful in that moment. Like, oh, wow, people are asking this. And in fact, I even remember saying to y'all, people are sending me private messages about this. Can I share a little bit more? And in the past, I probably would not have done that.
Right. Exactly. You're like, let's lean in.
Yeah.
Let's embrace this. Let's have a real conversation, which is important, and why I'm so glad that we're doing this podcast too, because I think there's already so many golden nuggets here that anyone listening, whether group practice, starting, or building a solo practice, can learn from of really what it means to heal through your business and to shift the legacy, right? Let's talk a little bit about your niche and landing in the world of Christian counseling, in the world of serving Black women. What was that journey like to come to that niche?
The journey of serving Black women and moms was always part of the plan. That was a given, and it was an easy one. I shouldn't say an easy one, but it felt natural. It felt like this is what I wanted. These are the people that I know I am called to. The journey to Christian counseling, however, did not feel like that. And I felt like it happened by an accident at first. But then I was like, Kadeisha, come on, do you really believe in accidents? Like, you really think that was an accident? And so really the journey to embracing my niche as a Christian counselor as well, for me, was about a journey to coming home to myself, right? And being willing to show up as myself, because there's somebody out there who wants that Kadeisha and needs that Kadeisha. And some of it was that my clients pushed me into it. And I was so surprised by that. Like, I've had clients who wanted to pray in session or see my credentials. Even when I wasn't advertising myself as a Christian counselor, they see what my degree and my background is in, and they're like, oh, I chose you because of this, and I want that part of you. And so I realized that part of me embracing that niche was not out of fear or my own stuff. Some of it was stuff that was projected onto me. So like I said, I used to be in a different, I wasn't in private practice. I was a therapist in more like a community setting, right? And I remember where it didn't feel safe to be who I was as a Christian. And it felt like it was only embraced as like this cool intellectual diversity piece, and not something that truly had power that I could be free to walk in. And now, because I am on my own and I'm my own boss, I allow myself to explore that ethically, yes, but I allow myself to explore it and show up as my full self without feeling like, oh, so-and-so is going to watch this. I think about my training when I was in training and being taped. So-and-so is going to watch this tape and be thinking, what in the world is Kadeisha doing? You can't do that. Actually, the client told me this is what they want to do, and I would be wrong to not go there. Yeah.
I like it. Niche is coming home to yourself. Honestly, it was an embracing of all parts of you.
Yeah. You said honesty was? Honestly,
what I saw happening is you coming home to yourself and embracing all of you.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I embrace my Blackness. I embrace my role as parent and all of these things, and being a woman. Okay, but what about this other part, right? And and then, well, how can I do that here but not here? And then starting to learn that it's the same process, and it's all of you being brought in.
And another pivot point in that was one time when I was under supervision, my supervisor, I told her that I would never want to use the words Christian counselor to describe myself. Right? If you look at my website, you'd be like, wow, really? But I remember she challenged me on that, and she was like, oh, so if you could speak Spanish, would you tell your clients you can't speak Spanish? And I said, no. And she was like, so you don't want to share this other language that you have or that you have in common with certain clients. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to think about it. Yeah.
That'll hit you over the head. I love that. What a beautiful, like, demonstration
paradigm
of
shift. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So there's been times when you've wanted to be like, I'm out, I'm over this.
You mean yesterday or this morning?
What? You're successful. You should not ever want to leave it, right? I think it's really important to discuss about when you have these wins, right? Like the money stuff, the niche stuff, getting the phone ringing stuff and everything. There's still going to be moments. I don't care if you have a multi-location, especially when you have multi-location. I've seen our clients with multiple locations and, 50 staff and all of this. There's going to be some times when you want to throw in the towel. So what has that been like for you when you've come up to those moments, and what has brought you to the other side of them?
It's been frustrating when I'm in those moments, and sometimes it feels, I think the words that come to mind are frustrated and annoying. And I think the reason I say frustrated and annoying is because even in those moments, I think there's already some part of me that has a knowing that this is a moment and you feel like you want to quit, but you know you're not going to quit, and you know that you can't quit. I mean, you can, but you know that you can't because there's a greater why for you. And so I think the word frustrating and annoying comes to mind because I know that it is a moment, even if it feels like it's way more than a moment. That there's a knowing deep down inside of me that there's something on the other side of this and you're going to have to get beyond it. And so it's like the joke's on me, and it's like, okay, like I'm sitting here entertaining this quitting fantasy, which is what I call it. Like I have so many quitting fantasies. And so what helps me get to the other side is naming what they are, right? And so being in the community, and my Zenny Me is a one of, I would say about 90% or maybe even 95% of where I find myself having community in private practice. So I post a lot, and even that is a victory, right? Because I didn't used to post or felt afraid to post, but now I post a lot, and I share what my quitting fantasies are, and I let people speak to them, and I let their questions and their comments bring me to a place of reflection, and then the fact that it's just a moment, I go past it, and knowing the more I want to quit, the more I'm able to get to the other side of it, because I learn and I get stronger at traversing that feeling of I want to quit. It doesn't go away.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a flag of nervous system dysregulation, that there is a part of me that I'm not giving voice to. Kind of like what you're saying in terms of like, you have to speak it for other people to reflect back. Yes. Like either there's an emotion in my heart that's not being given a voice. There's feelings in my body that I'm not acknowledging. There's like a pool that in my spirit, or there's like thoughts, and they all deserve attention and care. And when I'm too heavily like in my mind space and I'm not fully integrated, that's usually where those things happen. And so having community to hold a container a little bit for you to help that nervous system regulation helps you kind of come off of the ledge a bit, right? And go back to, that centered truth and knowing, that's more balanced within you.
Yes, I smiled because even sometimes like when you respond, and I mean, it's happened so many moments, even throughout this moment, us talking right now, but you have you often approach coaching with us. I don't know what your perspective of it is. My experience of you is that you have this calm energy. You could be saying something so profound and almost like, I don't know, like it will really open me up, right? But you will be so calm when you're saying it that I'm like, wow, did I just do a meditation? Or like, there's something about talking to you that it makes me reflective myself, and it helps me to tap into what that part of myself so that I can then regulate.
Yeah, because I don't believe coaching is me telling you what to do. I feel like you already know what you need to do. Right. Yes, my coaching is to give some tools, some like practical perspective of like, okay, over the 12, whatever years, 13 years of doing this and thousands of examples, this is the trend. Does that mean you have to do it? No, but I think within you, you can kind of, it's helping you dig deeper into your own wisdom and compass. But you and I have a unique connection. There's something that's kind of
You mean in the
like on a
quantum
very,
realm?
a very spiritual quantum level. Funny things happen between us, which I really delight in. And I think too of, that calming energy is because I don't think it's going to be helpful to join in the spin, of like, how can I help you spin a little more slowly, like kind of putting some boundaries on the spin. And y'all can't see my hands if you're listening to the podcast, but I'm kind of like giving it a hug and slowly, bringing it in. I just appreciate that you're honest about those things, and that the more we are honest about it, the more we normalize the process of building a practice. And it's a journey, right? This idea of like, I'm going to arrive is hilarious, because you're always, and especially if you're someone like Kadeisha, you're always going to be wanting to create something else and new and add on, but I think the point of this podcast, people could just say, well, I want to hear like all the big wins, but you can't have the wins without the journey and the path. And it's important that we're honest. Too many times, and I've gone through, doing this as long as I have, I've seen people and how they market, practice building and stuff. And I see these ebbs and flows in the industry. When we first started marketing, I remember people being like, you're focused on making money, and it was just this awful thing. And then it became okay to talk about money. And then it became about talking about the wrong things about money, which is just like, hey, I made 6 figures. And it's like, yeah, but are you happy? Are you balanced? Like, and it's at what cost, can we do it in a way that's like more balanced? And so just even talking about like the struggle that you have, if you're finding your way back to balance, that's going to walk with you through this entire journey, so that you have the longevity without the burnout, in the practice. So I look forward to having you back on the podcast in a few years and seeing like, okay, what's another few years of this? What does it look like? Where has it gone? Especially with wanting to, you're not just doing I'm licensed in multiple states. We're talking countries. And so it's going to be so fun. I'm excited. I'm excited for Ghana to get Kadeisha, and for you to bring that there too. It's going to be a really cool journey.
Thank you.
So if anyone's listening about starting a practice that they're starting, or they want to leave the group practice they're in, or they're just wanting to do this in a way that allows them to shine, because that's one of the things why I'm glad to have you on here, is that I love about you is that you show up as yourself, and that you've worked through stuff and you continue to align and be as authentic. Like who you are right now is who you're going to get in the room with your therapist. So what's one thing that you want to encourage therapists listening right now about stepping into private practice?
I would say trust yourself and trust what's in you. Clearly, if you're a therapist, you've already had to navigate multiple different challenges and different life moments, right? Whether that's your degree program or life experiences, there's something in you that allowed you to get through those moments. And so I think you have to know yourself, and trust what's in you, so that you can be able to have the courage to launch out into what I call the deep.
The deep. I love swimming in the deep with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I have so much love for you and appreciation for you and how you show up and how you share. So if you're listening to this, I hope you know just how amazing this podcast was and how special it is to get some time with Kadeisha. And if you need more support, we're here for you. So we'll see you next time in the next episode. And until then, take care and build a practice that you love, that allows you to have a life you love too. We'll see you next time.